Good evening. How's everybody?
Okay.
Good. Hello.
Here comes everybody. Y'all just in the back like Baptists, like me. Always last minute. Uh, well, good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. It's time for MELS 603, our ninth class meeting. We got one more next week with our last case study, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's go to our stars of the week. Robin's done real well. She's finished her cap, and we've got a couple more folks who are about to finish. She's the star in this group, I believe. She's way out front. So there's Keisha. Leslie's doing well. Everybody's doing good. Lakeitha. We had a couple interesting discussion board sixes this week that I wanted to point out. I think they're in the other group, but it's a reminder for us all. Robin said that we need to be doing professional development for teachers as well on field trips, because sometimes, as Shakita pointed out, we don't have enough administrators. We got so much going on. We send teachers on field trips, and we train administrators what to do, but then we haven't trained teachers what to do. That Jay Tinsley field trip that I've got posted under this week, that's what that's about. Is you need to meet with these people before you go, if you're the administrator in charge, and make sure they're up to speed. And also, as you know, my argument is always, you got teacher work days for a reason. You need to have, especially young teachers that don't have any days, you need to be training them on those days. But Jackie pointed out in hers that, you better meet with the team that's going to make sure that they're all planned and prepared. If you're sitting back at campus because you had something, you couldn't supervise the field trip as an administrator, and the people that went don't know, it doesn't do any good for you to know. So that was a good point. And that's why I had that one in there. Jackie was in a few classes back, maybe summer before last. She's done really well, but the problem that she experienced is that she was at a early college where you have a very limited administrative team. You don't really have an administrative team at an early college. You might have one administrator, and that be all. Well, obviously that administrator was stretched too thin, and so that became relevant for that one. So that's a good idea. Make sure you train your teachers. They know what to do on a field trip or any situation of supervision. I mean, most negligence cases come out of lack of supervision. You know that. The run-of-the-mill stuff. Either that, or nowadays it's the legal stuff on the sexual stuff. So I've got three of those that I want to look at right quick for tonight. That are appendages of the one from last week, and then once we've done. So let me share my screen. And so if we look at the content for the evening, I've got three here: not reporting the criminal charges, and principal And so each of these are a lesson on its own. So let me move this out of the way. See which one. Now, this AP was charged criminally. Now, it wasn't just because she failed to report, but retaliated against the victim, suspended her, threatened her, and forced her to apologize to the abuser. Now, obviously, that's malpractice. Obviously, that's malfeasance. And so she was charged criminally. So it wasn't just that she failed to report, she retaliated against the victim, she punished the victim. And that's why she was charged criminally. We all agree that that should have happened with her. Now, the difference in that one and this one is all these three did was simply not report. They didn't threaten, they didn't retaliate, they didn't do any of that stuff. They didn't punish the victim. They simply refused to report what she said. Now, this is the first case that I know of. This will be a national, one of these watershed cases. This one may get to the Supreme Court. They've been charged criminally for simply failing to report. They've gone from nonfeasance, had a duty to act and didn't. They've said that this is malfeasance. This is malicious. There was, they did the wrong thing knowingly. That's a different deal. Simply not failing to report. They've been charged criminally for simply failing not to report. We'll see how this one plays out in court over the next few years. This will be a watershed one. If it comes true that they convict these and their conviction is held up criminally for simply not reporting, that will be a game changer in the business. So again, the first one, yes, she failed to report, but she was charged criminally because of her actions were malicious and vindictive, very capricious. She punished the victim for reporting. So that we understand that. Yeah, she ought to have lost her job. She ought to have to go to jail for that. But these three people simply didn't report. I would strongly advocate that they ought to be charged criminally as well. But everybody feels the way they feel on that one. That's up to how you feel.
Yeah. On this one, Dr. Lamb, is the argument that they knew they were supposed to report,
Right.
failed to, or
Yeah.
So that's where we are? Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And that this is the first time I've ever seen, and I've seen people being charged civilly with this all forever, but this is a criminal case. Civil case, they take you money. In criminal cases, they take you money and your liberty. So that's what's different about this one. The first one, the Colorado case, yeah, they ought to took her money and her liberty. She punished the victim. She retaliated against the victim. That's clearly a criminal act. But the question is simply not reporting, is that a criminal act? Is that malfeasance? You knew better, but you did it anyway. You knew that it was wrong. So that one is yet to be determined. We'll see how that goes. Now, the last of these cases that I wanted to point out on not reporting was this one. Now, I knew this lady, or I know this lady. Longtime principal announces at Tuscola High School, which is in the western part of the state and not too far from Olivia. She failed to report. Now, here's the deal. Let me move some of this stuff out of the way. Remember when I told you you're only new till the first, till lunchtime the first day, that when you go to a new job, there'll be somebody that meets with you from the central office and tells you all the lawlessness that has to stop that day. But what about, you said, well, how's that relate to this case? That woman been principal there since, you were in short pants. Well, yeah, she had been. But what changed was they got a new superintendent. And all that stuff that had been going on forever stops with that new administration. Just like when you become a new principal, all the stuff that's been going on in your building has to stop that day. That teacher that's teaching photography that's supposed to be teaching English, you say, well, what's the big deal? Who pays photography teachers? That's a federal program. That's CTE. Who pays English teachers? State does. Remember, we can't cross those lines of money, even in personnel. And so the principal that I succeeded in the high school in Charlotte had been paying a federal teacher using state funds, had been putting on the schedule that he was teaching English every day. He was teaching photography down in his photography lab. That has to stop that day. The athletic director has to stop driving the activity bus as his personal vehicle on the weekend. That has to stop that day. Those kinds of things that absolutely happen to me. Now, what you got to understand as well, if you've got criminality going on at your building that you've been a part of or been not enforcing the rules because you've been there forever or they've been there forever or everybody knows it or whatever, that's all well and good until you get a new superintendent. And that's what happened in this case. The football coach, as most of them are, was a reprobate. And everybody knew that he was a reprobate. And he misbehaved in front of students and faculty, men and women, had his whole career. That was all well and good. And the principal just asked us the way it goes until they got a new superintendent. And then it didn't go that way anymore. And not only did he lose his job, she lost hers as well for failing to report all of his misbehavior. Her argument was, he's done this forever. I've known him all my life. That's not an excuse. When there was a new sheriff in town, the new superintendent said, we report this kind of stuff that he does on a daily basis. A friend of mine was an administrator in a neighboring county, kind of between where Olivia is and Buncombe. The county in between is Polk. He had to fire the football coach because he got 2 cheerleaders pregnant, and he was married and got 2 cheerleaders pregnant. I guess 2 was a bridge too far. It would have been okay if he just got 1 cheerleader pregnant, but he got 2 pregnant and he had to go. Absolutely a true story. G.A. Wilson, my dear departed friend, my golf partner forever. He died, unfortunately, of cancer at 47. But yeah, he had to let, the football coach got 2 pregnant. That he was carrying on with girls. I mean, there comes a time, even in rural, there's a bridge too far. This football coach had engaged in inappropriate behavior forever, but some, the little things become the bigger things. Now, conversely, in Rutherford County, when they fired Bill, he only had 1 cheerleader pregnant, but that was too much in Rutherford County. That was at East, where Olivia's going to be. Aren't you going to start working at East? That's a East story there. That's absolutely true story too. When Bill got 1 pregnant, they fired him, just 1. But his wife worked at the school too, so that made it uneven. I think that's why they did that. But this is absolutely true stuff, folks. But even if you inherited it, you got to deal with it day one. If you don't, and it goes on your watch, and when somebody comes in and the rules change or the objectives change, then it won't go well for you. Most of the time, they'll have you correct these kinds of things if they're known in your district that first day. But if they don't, you better correct them. Even if you become aware of them, now you can't say, "Well, I inherited this." No. If you've got people who are engaging in inappropriate behavior, you've got to report that behavior. That it's been going on forever. And the time to do it is when you first go in. You're all going to be a new administrator. Everybody's got to be new. Everybody's got to have that first day. But I'm telling you now, that will set the entire tone for your tenure at that place. And if you go along with lawlessness of the things that's not supposed to happen, the bill will come due. The bill will come due. So that's the notion on reporting. That's kind of my overarching on the negligence. Supervision will get you on having inadequate supervision, and then on the other part, not reporting, not following through on the laws and policies that you're supposed to, or crossing your streams of money. That's law and policy as well. Those are the three areas that you need to be the cleanest in. Making sure you don't mix your money, make sure you report what you're supposed to report, either to law enforcement or the superintendent, and make sure that you always have adequate prepared supervision people that are trained to be on supervision so that they'll do the right things. That's kind of been our consistent theme all semester. Those are the biggies that cause you to lose your house. Now, there's a million other things, but those are the three big categories of things. If you got your supervision button down, you trained your teachers, you've done your PD, make sure they know what to do. If you make sure that you're doing your reporting, make sure that you're telling the superintendent, law enforcement. If you make sure that you know the money streams and how you can't cross those streams, what money you can spend. If you can know those three things, you're going to be golden. You're going to be good. Those are the three biggies. Now, if you engage in personal reprehensible behavior, I can't help. If you diddle to help, that's on you. I can't plan and prepare you for that. If you don't have an ethical concern or moral compass, then obviously I can't fix that part for you. But things that you would experience, those are the three biggies, and we've explored those in depth this summer, so that you should be good on those. All right. So that's our course content for the semester. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed reading all of your activities. We have one more case study to do. Now, don't get confused about, because it's in Peru and some of the titles. Apply it to your situation, and I wanted it to be that way. Now, it covers everything that you've touched in both of your courses and all four of your evidences so far. Touches we can, master schedule, principal, letting little things become the big things, not knowing what's going on in the room, not doing walkthroughs, not doing any kind of professional development for teachers, not knowing the push-in inclusion program, what it was about or what was going on in it, not making sure that IEPs of the EC kids were getting met or the PEPs of the gifted kids were getting met. No parent inclusion night, no parent grade level nights, no skip, marketing plan nights of any kind. No professional development for teachers, no professional growth plan like from the APTEL, master schedule completely wrong. Had all the EC kids, we scheduled federal programs first, had all of them in one room, violating, talk to parents about other people's kids, FERPA, everything this one is everything you can do wrong. And it touches everything that we've covered in this program so far. And those are the things that you should be able to highlight those things. This is what happened. This is what I know. This is what I would do. This is what should be done in this case. How do you handle a situation like this? What would you have done? What's the legal and ethical piece of a situation like this? I'd have been in the rooms and then sending somebody else to see what was going on that wasn't qualified. So that's the case study. But look at this, this is your chance to show off everything that you've learned over the last two semesters. Bring it all home. This is what happened. This shouldn't have happened. This is what you should have done instead. Here's how this should have gone. Here's how this should have done. Okay, and we'll have that next week. That'll be our last case study. All right. The last two evidences that you will be expected to do. Now, I'll keep my shell open, and you can continue to put these in, is the CAP and the SOP. So let's talk about the CAP. So here are the tasks and prompts. I can close that. And I've got that one up good because I'm going to need that one in just a minute. All right. So when we looked at court cases that matter, that shaped public education, I can stop my share again, but I've got it ready here. What happened in 1954? What was the watershed case that started modern education in 1954? Brown, wasn't it? Brown versus Board of Education in Topeka, Kansas. It overturned Plessy versus Ferguson that said separate but equal is okay. Brown said separate inherently is not equal, and that you have to integrate schools. What happened for the next 11 years? Nothing. Until the Civil Rights Act of 1965. And the subsequent Elementary and Secondary Act. Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the first ESA, 1965. What did it include? Titles 1 through 9. Title 1, Reading and Math Support. Title 9, Sex Equity. All those things. All right. That was the watershed piece of legislation that set up what we do in schools. Not only, Civil Rights Act said we're going to integrate schools. Elementary and Secondary Act from federal level says these are the things that we're going to do in those integrated schools. That was 1965. Some 36 years later, it was updated. Now, there were several challenges. The last was the Robinson, 72. People, didn't like it, fought against it. I think the last of those was in 72 or 3. And finally, we had, a full implementation of the Elementary and Secondary Act of 65. Took about 10 years, fight all the legal battles. And we Cadillac'd along until 2001. In 2001, we had No Child Left Behind. Please understand, No Child Left Behind was not new. It was an extension and update of the Elementary and Secondary Act of 1965. And then that was updated and extended in 2015 with the Every Child Succeeds Act. Again, we went back to the acronym of ESSA again. But for the purposes of the CAP, we need to focus on No Child Left Behind in 2001. And it spoke to having highly qualified teachers in the classroom. Well, the antithesis of that, the enemy of having well-qualified teachers is teacher turnover, teacher retention, isn't it? How can you have highly qualified people if you can't keep them? All you got's a bunch of kids that are struggling to find the building. Like that bunch I used to have to hire in Charlotte, came in the same clothes that were wearing the day before with 15 bar stamps on their hand. If that's all you got, you're never going to get very far in the business. And so what the federal government said in 2001 is that every state had to start an initiative for teacher retention. Let me say that again. Every state had to start a statewide initiative for teacher retention. Anybody want to venture a guess what it's called in North Carolina? The North Carolina Teacher Working Conditions Survey. You don't think that North Carolina actually cares about teachers or cares what they think, do you? The only reason why they do the Teacher Working Conditions Survey, the TWC, is the federal government says we'll turn your money off if you don't. And then they only do it every other year, just to meet the minimum requirement. So we do the North Carolina Teacher Working Conditions Survey. That's our initiative that meets the standard of a statewide retention effort for teachers. That's why we have it. Same in South Carolina, the South Carolina Teacher Survey. We only have it because the federal government says we have to have it. Now, the CAP is about that survey. It's about following up on 5 specific areas of that survey. Now, you can add more, but you can't not do the 5 that are required. Time, facilities, resources, teacher leadership, school leadership. Teacher leadership is sometimes referred to as empowerment. You got to do those 5 areas from the TWC, from your school. You've got to look for the lowest items in each of those 5 required areas and then resurvey them back out to your colleagues. The notion here is things change. Sometimes the data is old. It was just released for this year, but sometimes it's 2 years old. Sometimes the principals change. Sometimes the teachers have changed. So you're just verifying that these low items in these sections are still a problem at that school. That's the needs assessment. This is task one. And then you present what those 5 areas are, and then you highlight and that you have done a needs assessment where you simply confirm that those are still problems in your building. That's task one. Now, task two is your qualitative work, where you go out and you ask people, why is it this low? You make a set of recommendations, and you go out and you ask, why is this low? What can we do to fix it? Here's what our team recommends, our CAP team recommends. What do you think about this? Now, the reason why you go out and talk to people and do that qualitative work in task two is sometimes we can misinterpret data. What does that mean? Under time, teachers tell us they don't have enough planning time. And we'd say, well, we really can't change the master schedule. That'd leave kids unsupervised if we had more teachers on planning, or it would blow the class size up for the teachers that were teaching that period. But if you went and talked to teachers, they would say, no, I've got plenty of time built into the schedule. I just never get to take it because I'm covering classes. You don't know that if you just survey. That's why I said if we were really interested in changing the culture of schools, we'd do more than just send a survey and report the results. We would actually do some follow-up. So that's what y'all are doing. Y'all are doing follow-up in these 5 areas. Why is it low? More importantly, what can we do to fix it? Hire substitutes. Central office don't want to hear that, because that money, that unused sub money, goes to the general fund. And that's when they get to take all these, that the best conferences only occur in Las Vegas or Atlantic City or New Orleans. They're never, you never see anybody going to a conference in Bismarck, North Dakota. There's a reason why. Or Abilene, Texas. I mean, that's even a joke in business school. I have a joint appointment. I do methodology for them as well in their doctoral program in organizational leadership. In business school, it's called the Abilene paradox. We both ended up in Abilene in the summertime because I thought you wanted to go and you thought I wanted to go, and nobody in their right mind would ever go to Abilene, Texas in the summertime. So it's amazing to me that we never, none of the good conferences, we never go to the ones at Bismarck or Abilene. We only go to the ones in the good places. Now, there is no allotment pay for central office people to go on all these conferences they like to go to. It comes out of the unused substitute fund money that goes to a fund, and they can travel on it. So what might they do at the central office? I mean, I experienced this in one of the districts I work in. They got mad at me because I would hire substitutes. We don't have any money to ride on if you hire substitutes. Yeah, but the teachers need their planning time. I'll just have them covered. We need that money. No, you don't. That's not what it was designed for. It's not how it's supposed to work. And so it's not incidental or accidental that some districts rarely hire substitutes. There's a reason why. It's not that they can't find them. You can get plenty of substitutes if you'll pay them. You just don't want to. You want the money, because now we're taking that money out of the teacher's check. They're having to use those sick days when they're not there, whether we hire a substitute or not. So that highlights a leadership problem. That's why we don't ask those questions. That's why we just simply turn the results in. Because when we start asking these questions, sometimes it points to bad behavior by the leadership in the school or the district. But if you really want to change schools, if you really want the culture of a school to improve, you need to do a follow-up on why this stuff is bad and what could we do to fix it, and they'll tell you. So what we'll do now, South Carolina people, sometimes your principal's supposed to have this information. Sometimes they'll complain that they don't, just like they tell you they don't have the school improvement plan or they don't give out the school budget. Don't fight them. just make one, send out a survey of your own that looks like the North Carolina teacher survey. The example that I've got for you here is a South Carolina one where she just did her own survey. So again, in one, you audit these 5 areas of your teacher working condition survey or your teacher survey in South Carolina, and then do a needs assessment. That means you identify the lowest items and send those out in a survey, and then make a set of recommendations. And then you ask people, qualitative, you ask people, why is this way? And what can we do to fix it? Here's the recommendations we make. What do you think of those? And then do a cultural competence audit. You pull all these pieces together, and it says you'll pull them from websites or internet searches or whatever, and then you put your plan together at the end. Pretty simple. So let's look at future working conditions survey. You can do it. All right. I like the middle column. And there you go. So now, is retention one of the required areas? No. School leadership, there we go. Now, I pull this one up because I've known Phil for a long time. And I knew it would be a good one. And that's why these low items, when you have items over here that are low, it's easy. What I get is when I get one like this and people say, well, all of them are high. Well, but some are high. I'd pick this one right here. Knows what's going on in my classroom.
Nicole, what did we learn today? Your race.
And so teacher leadership, again, I knew it would be high. I'd pick one of these. Here's a couple of 96s. All right. But look right here. Assist and determine the school budget. We got some here. We don't do managing student conduct. Facilities and resources. You pick 2 because they're together. You pick 2 of these. You got a couple of that are lower than the others. They're still good. And here's your time one. You got an 88 right there. Routine paperwork. And there you go. And so that's pretty much the way you do that. I was kind and picked one that was, but sometimes I have picked some that all of them are in red. They're down in the 20s and 30s. I hate to do that. Not that I don't, Now, if the principal was sitting here when I could call them out in person, I'd do that. But I hate to talk about people behind their back. I tell people, yes, I said that. Just quote me correctly. What was it I said one time? I did not say that he was a pinhead. What I said was he could wear a thimble for a hat. Quote me correctly. And so, yes, these do call you out as leadership a lot of times. But it's a fairly simple process where the whole notion here is once you're in charge of this in a school, if you really want the culture of your school to improve, you need to go out and talk with people. The data's right there in front of you, but you need to go ask people, why do you think it's this way? What can we do to fix this? If you do that, then you can actually address some of these low numbers if you talk to people. Especially if you inherit one that's low. I mean, somebody's going to get this school and it's going to be good. When Phil retires one of these days, somebody's going to get this school and it's going to be good. But most of the time, you're not going to go to a place like this. This is not going to be your first time out. You're going to go to a place where it's the opposite of this. And if you want to fix it, just looking at the numbers won't help you, and hoping that they do a better job on the survey for you next time. You need to go out and talk to people about all these things. And those are the 5 that have the biggest impact. Those 5 will have the biggest impact. And so that's why you're required to do those 5. Anybody have any questions on that? Again, I've got a North Carolina example and a South Carolina example. Now, South Carolina people, if you can get some survey data from your principal, it'll be easy. If you can't, just mirror the one from North Carolina. That's why I put that exact South Carolina, and I designated it as a South Carolina example so you can see. And again, as you know, my shell will stay open. I'll continue to grade work. And you can continue to work on the cap if you want to do that. All right, let me share the screen. All right, now for the SOP, it should be the next one in the line here. You just go and copy and paste this and stick it underneath this. Make sure you know, for task 1 of the SOP, you will find the information and skip task 1, prompt 1. Now, everything in there is not background description of the setting. So don't just copy and paste the whole thing. Pull out background information description of the setting and put it in, and make sure you take any labels or any directions from the skip off of it, and make sure it's just the information. And then for the next one here, again, read the prompt. Read what they want, and take out the extra stuff. I'm just in red telling you where you'll find it for each of these, and cut it down. Now, the difference will be, if you don't cut it down, these will be 120 pages long. If you cut them down, they'll be about 60 pages long, and your evaluator will reward you if you went in and just pulled out the stuff that you need. But again, don't have any stray tasks or prompts in there. Same way that you did when we did OMA task 2 this semester, and you pull the 3 tasks from the AppTel, and I told you to take the labels off of them. Do the same thing. Just take the labels off. Now, you're going to put together a graphic organizer of the app cell, the AppTel, you know, the action plan, the growth plan, the marketing plan, and the cultural labs. From those 4, you're going to put them all together in one big graphic organizer, and you'll have that, which is your school improvement plan. You'll have your master schedule, and you'll have your budget. Remember the triangle? Once you put these together, this, excuse me, this program will have shown you how to build a master schedule, how to support it with the budget, and then those 2 support the school improvement plan. And the 6 evidences teach you how to build a school improvement plan. This becomes your working document of your school improvement plan. When you put all your action plans together, you have your master schedule, you have your budget that support it, you're good to go. You've got everything that you need. Now, back in the 90s, everybody got all involved in these PERT charts, and they kind of come along with us for the last 30 years. I do not like them. This is optional. Graphic organizer is required. This is optional. Some people, a lot smarter than me, that are more abstract, random, like these kinds of things that show their relationships. And if you want to do those, one of these additionally to your graphic organizer, knock yourself out. I never really saw that much value in these myself, but some people see a lot of value in these. It helps bring clarity to them. I'm not one of those people, but if you want to do one, it's appreciated. And then you write your competencies in task 6, as we always do at the end. This time you focus on the most important communication lesson from the time that you've spent in the MSA program. Most important change management. It's not tied to one particular class or one particular evidence. It's tied to, from my experience here, this is what I took away. This was the most important thing that happened to me on responsiveness. This is the lesson that I learned. Think, be reflective in your practice. More than anything else, you got to be reflective in your practice. When you look at teacher observations, what does it say? Teachers reflect on their practice. When you look at principal, do you reflect on your, why do I have you write little reflections? When we do a case study, reflect back on your practice. How did your team get along? What did you learn? What did you take away? That's what you should be looking at, these 6 items for that kind of thing. What did I learn? What did I take away? Where am I here? Now, one of my favorite theoretical frameworks for my doctoral students is one that you've known all your adult life. You just don't know, you just didn't know you knew it. Chris Argyris's double loop theory. That's one of my favorites. For lay people like us, it's called the theory of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Haven't you heard of that all your adult life? That's an actual theoretical framework for organizational behavior. Dr. Chris Argyris from Harvard wrote, he's the founder of that theory, but he wrote extensively on that. He lived to be 99, I believe. When I did my postdoc, he was my advisor on my postdoc at Harvard. And I love that. Now, my actual doctorate, my theoretical framework was Hertzberg, but I did some work with that as well. Hertzberg's 2-factor theory, but I did work. My postdoc was in Argyris's double loop theory. But the whole notion here is organizations are people, process, and product. People, process, product. Too many times we just run the process and we think it'll get us the product that we want, and we don't really evaluate, does this really get what we want? So a couple of examples I use with my doctoral students when we're working through these originally is me and Olivia go up on the roof and she makes me drink a gallon of water and she tosses me off the roof. I hit the sidewalk. She comes down, she picks me up, she dusts me off, she takes me back up on the roof. She makes me drink 2 gallons of water this time, throws me off again. Problem is she has made an anecdotal data analysis that there's a correlation between drinking water and flying, because every bird she's ever seen stops and drinks him some water and then he flies on. And so she has decided in her mind that there's a correlation between drinking water and flying. If I just drink enough water, she just makes me drink enough water, I'll eventually fly. Sound like schools? If we just keep on doing it, it'll work eventually. Increase the intensity or the duration. Do more of it, do it longer, do it more, do it, it'll eventually work. When we've not analyzed whether that process actually gets us the outcome that we want. We keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And not only do we do the same thing over and over, we increase the intensity of duration, or we do what we used to call in Charlotte Mecklenburg, the CMS way, the theory of stupidity. That means you hire more people to do the same thing over and over again and get the result that you didn't want, the same result. That's what we used to call it there. What we just, John Bolin hit his new driver 20 yards further in the woods than he could his old driver. It's not good if you're going the wrong direction, folks. You just keep on doing the same thing over and over again. At some point, you have to stop and reflect. Does this get me what, is it implemented with fidelity? And if it is and it's not working, we need to look at, is this working or not? But we see correlations that don't exist anecdotally from our own personal experiences, rather than sitting down and analyzing things from an objective perspective. We throw our own experience in there, which is anecdotal, and we operate off of our personal truth or our tribe's political truth rather than objective truth that we can prove. And we just, we won't give up on we won't reflect, we won't say, well, this is not working, or what made this work, or why is this not, we stick to it. We can't walk away from it. We just can't walk away from it. We will not reflect on our practice. We won't acknowledge this is not working. Yeah. And so the corollary is heat, ice cream, and crime. This is the first one. When we do correlations, we start talking about correlations. We do heat, ice cream, and crime. You do realize that ice cream consumption and crime rate go up and down at exactly the same rate. Ice cream consumption and crime go up and down exactly at the same rate. But they're not correlated, folks. They're both correlated to a third variable, heat. Now, heat's what makes ice cream consumption go up, and it makes crime go up. So when heat is the variable that they're both correlated, but they're not correlated to one another. So you say, well, Dale, what's that got to do with public school? People that don't understand heat, ice cream, and crime, that don't understand the water, the 2 gallon, more of it'll make it work. They're the stupid people that when their out of school suspensions for the year exceed the state or the district average, and they're required to add a safety plan to their school improvement plan. They have to write an addendum safety plan. And when you ask them what their addendum safety plan is, the people who don't understand how ice cream, heat, and crime tell you, we're going to make them wear uniforms. That's where that came from. That's the same as heat, ice cream, and crime. That's exactly the same as heat, ice cream, and crime. It's people who think that putting a uniform on a kid will change his behavior. Again, reflective practice. Understand what correlates are. Those are the things that we're looking for. And that's what we're looking for in task 6, is that reflective behavior. Reflect back on each of those competencies. What were the real takeaways from each one of those that you learned? That reflective practice. All right. Let me look at what I've got down here at the bottom. Have I gotten everything I can? That. All right. I think that's all of our content for the evening. I'm going to end this one, but I'm going to come right back. So this one will be recording. The recording will be processing, and we'll start again on this same link at 7 o'clock. I'll be back a few minutes early with our interviewing for the night for my 603 class. I'll see y'all next week at 6 for case study 4. As always, I appreciate you. You did a great job. I enjoyed reading your work this week. Everything was good. No complaints this week. We'll see about next week. I'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you.